Well, this morning I read an op-ed by a 19-year-old political junkie who is beginning to doubt a career in politics because of the way she sees women in Parliament being treated. Yasmin Poole wrote the article for Fairfax, and here's a quote from the article. She says, "As I grew older, I realised politics is still a man's game. For the first time, I began questioning whether my gender would be a hindrance to my political aspirations and whether, as a woman, I would be taken seriously." So is this the case? Or can two of our female Legislative Assembly members reassure her? Yasmin Poole is with me on Drive. Hi there, Yasmin.
Hi, Laura.
And along with Labor member for Ginninderra, Tara Chain, and the Liberal member for Brindabella, Nicole Lauder. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yasmin, first let me ask, when did you first become interested in politics?
Look, I've been interested in politics for such a long time now. I think the first real time I started considering it was when I was about 12 years old, and we went on a school trip to Canberra, and I went inside the federal parliament and I just saw the House of Representatives and I thought, wow, this is such an incredible opportunity to shape Australia's future, and I could almost see myself speaking there. So that was probably the beginning, but ever since I've taken a really keen interest in what's been happening.
What area of politics are you most interested in?
I think I'm interested all around. I think just because of my age, I'm interested in what we can do to enhance young people and contributing to politics. So I recently interned with my local MP, and everything that he said about, improving the position of young people in Australia in regards to education and employment, that's something that's really close to my heart.
And at what point did you begin to see politics as being what you call it, a man's game?
Yeah, look, I think I distinctly remember I was about 17 years old and I thought, all right, I'm out of high school now, let's see whether I can get a little bit more involved. And it was the first political event. I stepped in and it was a sea of suits is what I would describe it. There was about a handful of women, and I remember they told me, we women, we stick together, but it was definitely something very intimidating as a 17-year-old girl, and just seeing groups and groups of men in circles talking about the economy and infrastructure and that kind of thing.
Well, Tara and Nicole, I'll start with you, Tara. What first attracted you to politics?
Oh, it sounds cliche, but wanting to make a difference, really. I joined the Labor Party in 2007. It was my final year of university, and also pretty exciting time to be joining politics because the wave of change was really upon us when Kevin Rudd became opposition leader. But for me personally, taking that step forward to get into Parliament, I'd been really involved in the local community and was making a difference in local organisations, but thought, I just want to do a little bit more. I think there's more I could do, more I could offer, and to do that I've got to be in the room where the decisions get made.
Nicole, is it about making change for you?
Absolutely. I'd been working in the community sector for nearly 10 years, and I really felt like I was making a difference in that regard. And I started to think about politics because that was a way to make a difference on a broader scale, not only in the areas in which I was working. So I saw it very much as improving my community, improving the lives of people in my community.
Have you had a chance to read Yasmin's article yet?
I did get a chance to look at it.
What would you say to some of the concerns that she raised in it?
Look, I think it's never a good time for women especially to go into politics. That's why you've just got to do it at any time, because if you overthink it, you'll always find a reason of not to do it. But it's not only women. Just earlier this year we had a male Labor senator, I think he was from WA, who decided to step back from politics because of the impact it had on his family. So I think one of the key things is about making it even more family friendly. We're a bit lucky in the ACT. We've already taken a number of those steps in our parliament, but there's still room for improvement.
What about your experience, Tara? How did your expectations when you became a politician compare to reality?
I think that our parliament, like Nicole said, we've made thanks to many of the women who've come before us, but also many of the women who are in Parliament now from all sides of politics, have really made it a family-friendly workplace. And that's an attraction for a lot of people, particularly people who might have caring responsibilities. And that applies whether you're male or female. So on our sitting days, for example, we don't start until 10 a.m. and that allows people to do the school drop-off. Same thing with our lunch breaks. They're 2 hours in the middle of the day. And that's not about working hard. We get a lot done in the times that we are sitting, but we've also got that time available to really make sure that we've got that balance there. And equally, the whips in our parties have a memorandum of understanding that if anyone says from another side says, hey, I've got a caring responsibility, I've got a sick child, we automatically grant that pair. So there's no argy-bargy around it or playing politics around people's responsibilities. In terms of, for me, for the Labor Party, and thinking about some of the things that were in that article, quotas are really important for us, and it's something where we go out of our way to draw a line in the sand and say, actually, this is not just what we aspire to or what we want to have in our party and in our parliament. This is what we will have. And so in the ACT, it's for each of our 5-member electorates, it's 40% women, 40% men, and the other 20% is either gender. And that works incredibly well and helps contribute, I think, to making sure we've got a balanced caucus, but also a balanced parliament.
Nicole, do you think we're a little lucky in the ACT though? When you look at that, and we do have it really good here in ACT politics, but when you look at it compared to a federal level, do you think that maybe we're not reflecting what might be happening in other political circles?
Well, I think the ACT is different in a number of regards to many other jurisdictions and many other parliaments and their elected representatives. But I think rather than being lucky, we're very fortunate. It's one of those things where the harder people work at it, the luckier
made it happen
you get and make
absolutely.
it happen. So, I'd point out with respect to quotas, it's a vexed question. It's all, many people on both sides of the argument, but of course in the Canberra Liberals we've achieved a majority female party room without quotas, and overall the ACT Parliament is a majority female parliament, and it was the first in Australia to achieve that. So we are very fortunate. I would like to think and hope that it brings a bit of a different dynamic to our debate, and that we do see a little less of that argy-bargy. We certainly haven't got rid of it by any means. And in a way, there is a place for a lot of that give and take across the floor. For me personally, especially if it's humorous, that you can see a bit of a sense of humour in it, rather than a direct, barbed personal attack on someone, which is just inappropriate and unacceptable.
My guests here on ABC Radio Canberra Drive are Nicole Lauder, the Canberra Liberal member for Brindabella, Tara Chain, ACT Labor member for Ginninderra, and 19-year-old Yasmin Poole, who's written this article in Fairfax today questioning whether it's worth getting into politics if you're a female. Yasmin, having listened to both Nicole and Tara there, what does it make you think? Do you think that that perhaps it is probably the best thing to do is just to jump in head first?
Yeah, look, and I think there's definitely, what they said is definitely both valid. The only thing that I would raise is, I think what I was writing in the point of my article as well, is that, it's not necessarily just, numbers. It's not, of course, it's very important to get more women in politics, but it's also analysing how women are actually treated in Parliament. And I know I mentioned in my article in Federal Parliament, even looking at the way that Julia Gillard was treated, the way that she was treated about her clothing, her accent, her childlessness, everything like that. So it's not necessarily about just getting more women, which is, of course, very important, but it's about really establishing that zero tolerance, about ensuring that, women are heard, and that's something that young women care about. It's saying that, all right, if I decide to go into politics, I actually want my values and my ideas to be taken seriously, rather than just being questioned about really kind of ridiculous and irrelevant topics, which often female MPs continue to be subjected to.
Well, Tara, have you ever questioned your decision to enter politics based on your gender? Have you had any experiences like what Yasmin's talking about?
Oh, certainly, and especially on the campaign trail, I guess a little bit recognisable, mainly due to my hair colour, but I think in a way you can become a bit of public property, and because people are seeing you a lot and feel like they're getting to know you, sometimes their comments to you can be quite blunt or candid, or
Yeah.
but equally, I've certainly in the campaign received quite a lot of sexual comments, especially about perhaps the way I was dressing, or about if I had bare legs that day, and the shape of my legs perhaps, which wasn't exactly ideal as a 29-year-old candidate.
Sure.
But that hasn't. The really great thing is that hasn't then been what I experience in our parliament. And I think what's really important and goes to something that Yasmin was saying is that parliaments, like everywhere, are a workplace, and everyone in that workplace, from the top down, but every single person has a responsibility in that workplace to have or to be promoting a culture of respect. And I think that we do that by and large in our parliament, and by having more women in that parliament as well, it means there's no safe haven for sexual discrimination. That's
Yeah.
not going to be allowed, because by having those numbers there and that strength. It means that women will be more confident in calling it out. So it just doesn't happen.
Nicole?
I think it still does happen a little. I know my colleague Julia Jones has called it out a few times where she's felt like she's been treated, talked down to because she's a woman, and she's raised particular issues that perhaps some men especially find difficult or awkward to talk about. She raised the issues of toilets for women firefighters, and then whether they might need to change a tampon while they were out fighting a fire. And I think that potentially made some men feel a little uncomfortable, and they felt it was inappropriate to discuss that in the parliament. But people are people. We all have the same bodily functions, whether you're a woman. It happens.
Yeah.
And if we can't talk about it as the leaders supposedly in our community, who can?
Very much so. Yasmin, before I wrap this up, are you going to get into politics?
Look, it's been a long journey, but even though I wrote that piece, I think I'm really confident that that's definitely something that I'm still aspiring towards. And despite everything that happens, I know that it's taken a little while to come to the realization that, like I said, it's just getting involved, and it's really using my voice to create change. And I hope to do that wherever I can. And the fact that recently the statistic of Plan International stated that 0% of young women 18 to 25 want to get into politics, I just know that I need to use my voice to encourage more young women to start considering that as well, and making a positive change for our community.
Yeah, I think it needs to start with you, doesn't it? Thank you so much. We've got a text message here from one of our listeners saying, you will make a great politician, I'm sure, Yasmin. Don't focus on gender identity politics or play the oppressed female card. Respect people first, not women, not men. So there you go. Thanks very much for joining me on Drive.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Yasmin. That's Yasmin Poole there, and Tara Chain and Nicole Lauder, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tara Chain there, the ACT Labor member for Ginninderra, and Nicole Lauder, Canberra Liberal member for Brindabella. You're listening to ABC Radio Canberra Drive.